Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Rogers here on Campaign for America. Tonight, folks, we're going to be talking about some very critical issues that are indeed affecting our nation, affecting it right down to, believe it or not, elementary school level. John McCann will be with us shortly to talk about what's going on with the Department of Education, as well as what we are seeing happen with the United States military. Now, today, Campaign for America launched an online petition. It is a vote of no confidence for a U.S. military commander named General Mark Milley. General Milley is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and he has introduced the critical race theory to U.S. academies across the country. Also, that critical race theory and other elements of what I believe to be the far left and communism has been introduced to our troops, even in the enlisted ranks. Campaign for America has been warning the American people via this broadcast, and I have been on other national broadcasts about the absolute aggressive behavior of the Chinese Communist Party and what they're attempting to do to this country. And so we have an online petition. If you'd like to have the link to that petition, we have it on Facebook. We have it on other social media platforms, but you could certainly email us. And now I'm welcoming John. John, thank you for joining us tonight. Good to see you after a 2-week, working vacation, I would say.
You traveled man.
Well, John, if you just check your audio, that's very low and it's cutting out. So if you could take a look at that, we could get to that. So now, John, I opened up by sharing with the audience, again, the exploits, if you will, of General Mark Milley. He is the chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff. We launched an online petition today asking the American people to sign it as a vote of no confidence for this individual. Now, John, he has said some pretty, I'll tell you, incredible things with regard to why he has introduced an indoctrination program in the ranks of the U.S. military. We have heard from a lot of military personnel, both active and retired. They're completely flabbergasted over what route this guy's taken. In my view, it's wrong, it's detrimental. We explain in the petition that we're asking the people to sign that by no means does this reflect on our support for our troops. But John, my point is this: the troops can't speak up. I mean, this guy's a general, Joint Chiefs of Staff. They got to obey their commanders. But we, civilians, do not have to obey their commanders. But we, the people, can stand up and be their voice. John, what's your take on this?
It's the Biden administration declaration of America being an anti-racist society. And it's the only way you could surmise what's going on in light of some of the other news that came out earlier this morning. They're going after people to train and educate, and in some cases they're calling it anti-racist therapy. They're going after people that can't fight back. They're going after children, and they're going after people who have to follow orders. They're going after, Steve, here in New Jersey, I got a notice from the bar that we have to take some sort of training now as part of our educational training. And I'll be sure to attend, and I'll be sure to ask the right questions at the right time too. So I could fight for myself, but to go after people who have to follow orders, and to go after children and parents of these children, it's insidious. And this is clearly coming from the top of the administration. This is clearly coming from the president. He can't distance himself from the policies that are being enacted by the people he has in place, whether it's the chairmen of the Joint Chiefs of Staff or the Department of Education or HUD, or any of these other programs that are attacking. Now, the military is particularly concerning because we need them. And we just had China, while you were on hiatus, threaten to bang heads or bang skulls for anyone who opposes their efforts with regard to expansion.
John, they took it a step further. The Chinese Communist Party actually stated that they will launch a nuclear strike against Japan if anyone decides to interfere with their desire, meaning the Chinese Communist Party's desire to make a move on Taiwan. But the point that we're bringing to the people, and please, everyone, and it's very interesting. We have someone from Russia actually just tuned in. The fact of the matter is that the United States military, folks, is supposed to be combat ready. They're supposed to be trained to fight any enemies that are looking to destroy this country. And John, we have troops, I've heard from some of them, they're sitting in classrooms all day, learning about what? And these are not going to be my words, folks. These are the words of some of the people I spoke to, learning about white trash, learning about Black Lives Matter, learning about what is politically correct, learning about, well, how do you treat your enemy? You know how you treat your enemies of democracy, your enemies of freedom? You kill them, you destroy them. You do what must be done to take them off the face of the earth. Those were the principles, John, of generals like George Patton. The principles of General Mark Milley is, well, you know, we got to be nice. You know, we perhaps should do this, John. You're a lawyer. How about this? How about we give training to our troops on the Miranda rights? So, you know, you're in the battlefield and you go track down a terrorist and you capture him, but you give him his rights. And then, folks, his rights will provide him with a lawyer. Now, John, that is actually going on, not to that extent, but, you know, terrorists now get legal representation, as you know, in the United States. Folks, look at, we're becoming a nation of I don't know what, but I got to tell you, the way that we turn it around, John, and let's talk about this because people have been asking over and over and over again, what can I do? What can I do? I go to work. I have a family to feed. What can I do? Folks, what you can do is get involved from a local level all the way up to a national level. We're able to address the national level stuff. We've got a petition out there. John, I understand, I was told this earlier, that never has anyone heard of a petition being circulated like the one we're circulating, challenging and bringing forth a vote of no confidence on a U.S. military commander. Never in the history of this country. And I regret that I had to do that, John. But the fact of the matter is, our young men and women, they went in the military for a reason, to defend the Constitution of the United States, not to defend the principles of Mark, Stalin, and any other communist you want to bring to light.
Well, to your point, the person who opposed that agenda was in charge, the commander for Space Force. And they forced him out because he opposed this agenda. And that sent a chilling message to the rest of the commanders throughout the military. But you touched upon something in terms of what's the military's role. The military's role is to defeat the enemy. And war involves the destruction of human life, unfortunately. But that's what it is. And you're right to point out the fact that if they're training hours and hours on end in Marxist ideology regarding critical race theory, that is definitely going to hurt the readiness. I'm sure you're going to be hearing from more people, but I'm not a military expert. But I will say that when you take an organization, the military, and try to make it a social experiment, these things fail. The military was the one area of our country that was a shining beacon just 7-8 months ago. Let me explain. We've heard there's no when you're dealing with organizations and peoples and large or small groups, you're always going to be hearing about complaints. Over the years, one of the things we did hear about the U.S. military was there was problems with their treatment with women, and we've heard about that. It was open. It's in our society. We dealt with that problem, and things came about to the media, and the public became aware of that problem. But we have never had, ever, that I can recall in the news cycle anyway, over the last 10, 15 years, someone saying that the U.S. military is racist. And that's what's concerning. They're going into the defense of our country, which seems to work pretty well and is effective at what it does.
Let me address that point you just made. I spent 25 years in the United States Navy. I worked my way up from the lowest enlisted ranks all the way up to retire as a lieutenant commander. Not once, to your point, John, not once did I witness in all those years outright racism, promotion because of race, color, or creed. I witnessed what you just articulated, a model organization that promoted on merit, that promoted not on the color of your skin, as Martin Luther King would say, but the content of your character. There was many challenges we had to meet as climbing up the ranks as military commanders. But this idea that there's systemic racism in the United States military is a false narrative, folks. Believe me, you speak to most overwhelming majority. I'll even go so far to say 99% of the military personnel that is serving now, they will tell you just what I told you. And this is what's creeping, folks, into our lives, every aspect of our lives. A Marxist, Leninist, Stalinist, communist doctrine that even it would just be fiddles me. The commander, the Joint Chiefs of Staff has bought into it. John, I heard from a veteran today that served under General Mark Milley. The guy couldn't believe that Mark Milley was doing this, but I showed him the documents that we had, or I told him we had documents and we have information that I will provide to anybody, any of you who are listening, some of the particulars regarding where Mark Milley has been and what he has been saying. He can't be serving folks anymore. He's got to go. We need a military commander who's going to command, who's going to defend the Constitution. In my view, based on his statements and the information I've received, and a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it has been corroborated, I got to tell you, he's not a communist, folks. I think he is an American patriot. He has served this country well. But even those who have served this country well, there's a biblical scripture, John, that is really hitting home. And I'm going to paraphrase it, but the scripture says more or less that there will come a time when men will look at good as evil and evil as good. And they're only going to listen to what they want to listen to and hear what they want to hear. And then the chilling part of that scripture, and perhaps it's another scripture, says even the elect would be deceived if the days weren't shortened. So, you know, I've got to tell you, based on what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing, it's just absolutely frightening what's happening to this country. Now, for any of you who want the narrative with facts, all you got to do is, you see what's on your screen, campaignforamerica.com. Go to our website. We publish a quarterly intelligence report. Next one's coming out in a couple of weeks with very specific information about critical race theory in the U.S. military and what General Mark Milley is up to. All facts, folks. Nothing here is going to be glossy. It's not going to be opinionated. These are going to be facts. And they're free. We send them to you via our quarterly newsletter. Now, John, let's go to the second topic, which we weren't going to talk about tonight. I didn't have it on the agenda until you brought this to my attention. John, you found out today. Now, listen up. Everyone who has kids in schools, parochial schools, public schools, you need to listen up to this. John, you found out something very, very chilling that has now apparently come down from the Department of Education.
Yeah, so this is actually credited to the Fox News network, and we know that Fox News has had problems over the last year with the Trump organization and the President Trump. But to their credit today, they did some work and they discovered something so insidious that it makes you concerned for the country, not just for 2 years from now, but for 2 months from now. So what they did was the Department of Education put out a toolkit, Steve, and the toolkit was designed to get schools ready for this fall for reopening. And they in that toolkit they provided a link to an organization called the Abolitionist Network. And the Abolitionist Network was founded just a few years ago by a woman named Bettina Love. Now, Bettina Love is an author, a self-described author and activist. And she had been working in the San Diego school system with the blessing of Cindy Martin, who is the Deputy Secretary of Education now at the Department of Education. So she has a relationship with Bettina Love, a working relationship, where she brought Bettina Love into her school systems to train teachers. And the training was to be anti-racist therapy. That's the words that they use. And that's alarming. And so what happened was Fox News got a hold of it and blasted it all morning, including a package that included her quotes, direct video quotes, right from Bettina Love. And just to give you an idea of what this organization is about, I'm going to quote Bettina directly. She said, the network is dedicated not to creating new schools or reimagining schools, but, and I emphasize, destroying schools that do nothing but harm Black and brown children. She went on to say that if you don't realize white supremacy is in everything we do, we've got a problem. And then she stated, I want us to be feared. And what she promised to do, and this is the Department of Education putting it out there as a resource for all of American schools, all the schools in America. And they've been working on this now for a couple of months, not a couple of weeks. Okay. So she says, this is what she said. If you call us, we will find an activist in residence, and he or she or they will find out how. They will do research. They will do all the organizing. Teachers and parents show up. We will dismantle. And we hope to save hundreds of them around the country doing this work. And this concept, how is she going to achieve these goals? She said they hire activists to go into schools to stop white supremacy by mapping, canvassing, building groups in our coalitions, creating media, and I emphasize her words, propaganda. So that is what the Department of Education for several weeks now have been promoting as a resource tool to all the schools of America. After it broke this morning, the Biden administration came out and said, oh, wait a minute, it was an error. Except they forgot to tell everyone about this error and how it happened or why it happened. But more importantly, all you have to do is just look at the facts that have already been reported. Bettina Love has already been in the San Diego school system at the invite, most likely, of the current deputy of education, Cindy Martin, who was then superintendent of schools just last year. And so this is going after children based upon the content of their, about the color of their skin. This is going after the teachers, putting them under the gun. Anti-racist therapy. I didn't know that was a medical condition. Are they now associating white supremacy with a medical condition? I urge everyone that's watching this, go on the internet, go on the Abolitionist Network's website and just read what they're about. And this is what the Biden administration was promoting as of this morning. And now they're walking it back. Now, you combine that with the department, with what's going on in the military, I'm very concerned for our country. I'm very concerned. And I'm not talking about 2 years from now. I don't know if we're going to be able to wait for the next cycle of elections. If you're going to be going in and brainwashing elementary schools, and they're denying that it's happening, except for they put it out there, and it's been out there for weeks now, promoting this. What are the schools going to do that already started to work on this stuff? Are they going to walk it back? What are they going to replace it with? If this was an error this morning, well, what is the toolkit that they're going to be relying on to help open up? What is their agenda? It's pretty clear. If you put up a nominee and you make that nominee the Secretary of Education or the Deputy Secretary of Education, and they're promoting things, you know they're doing that with the countenance of the White House. And that's unbelievable to me. Unbelievable.
Well, John, to your point, I ask, or people are asking me constantly again, what can we do? Now, folks, we're in part at this point in time in the history of our country because many, many people have done nothing, to be frank with you, done nothing. When I was on the school board in New Jersey, I know, John, you served in government. I could tell you, you're lucky if you had 5 people show up at school board meetings. Parents were very unaware of what their children were being taught. Then I went on to the city council. Again, the same 5 people every week at the meetings. I don't think anybody shows up at the county commissioner meetings. Perhaps no one shows up at public hearings with regard to the Congress. But the Chinese Communist Party, folks, please get educated about them as taking the same playbook that the Soviet Communist Party used during the time of Reagan, and they're waiting. They're very patient, right, John? The communists are very, very patient. And to your point, folks, they're not going to attack us. I mean, they are, I'm surprised, attacking us in the military, and Lord knows who else, where else they are in our society. But they're going after our children, folks, within the law, all right, within the confines of the law. They're going after our children by one. Okay, go ahead, John. I just said within the confines of the law. Am I wrong?
Well, that's what they're trying to do. I can tell you, as an attorney in New Jersey, in New Jersey. Every department, board of education, and school system has an ethics committee and ethics that they are bound to. And in New Jersey, it is unethical to bring politics into the classroom. Now, critical race theory, or in this particular case, the abolitionist network, there's no pedagogical purpose to it. This is purely politics. But also from a legal perspective, there's going to be lawsuits because there are plenty of attorneys out there that understand equal protection. You cannot tell children that because they are white, okay, that they are in the control of, how condescending, that they are in control of minority people's lives, and that they have to pay a price for that. To me, you could find a federal judge in the district court even to say that that's a violation of the Equal Protection Clause of America. So I don't know if it's legal, but I think it's time that people start lawyering up in these school districts and let the judges start making the calls.
Well, John, people need to get involved in their PTOs, their PTAs. They got to, folks. I'll tell you what, got to get involved. You see what's at stake here? What's at stake here is our country, the future of our children. Now, it's going to be up to us, as it was up to our parents and grandparents, to leave our children a country that's free. If we don't wake up and we don't stand up and we don't do what is absolutely necessary to hit the communists hard in government and out of government, well, you know what? The America we know will not be handed off to our children. So how is it that you can get involved? Number one, we've urged people and continue to urge people. If you're a parent and you have children in your school district, get involved with your PTOs, your parent group organizations, get involved. Get a committee together. If you don't want to join a group, get a committee of parents together that will go to school board meetings. We've already encouraged 4 or 5 people in the community I live in to run for the school board. They're conservatives. They're going to run. And we hope to get at least 2 elected, because frankly, there are people on school boards across this country that don't belong there. They have been bought into the ideology, whether by omission or commission, of what we are talking about tonight. That's number one. Number 2, I tell you, folks, I suggested this to my grandchildren, at least my children's children, my grandchildren. If you can send your children to a private parochial school, do it. Do it. Send them to a school where they're going to learn about God and country, where they're going to learn about the Constitution of the United States and not the ideology of Black Lives Matter. It's going to cost money. Well, rather pay little now than a lot later, because what you're going to pay later is raising children that are going to go out into the world and get sucked into this vacuum that is sucking up this country. And the fact of the matter is that unless we get involved, we're going to find ourselves in trouble. Now, one thing, you see my eyes going here, folks? It's incredible. Somehow, some way, John, we have a Marxist on, all right? And then their name is it looks like it's in Russian. But I want to share with you something since you're listening. You know, you're on here, and I'm going to block you in a minute, all right? You're on here talking ill about the United States of America. And you're talking about China being number 1 very soon, that the United States government is an imperialist aggressor. Well, let me just share this with you before I push the button here. Number 1, go back, look what happened to the Soviet Communist Party. They're in the ash heap of history. They don't exist. And let me add this, my friend. You see what's happening 90 miles off our coast, off the coast of Florida? That communist regime is going to go to the same ash heap of history that the Soviet Communist Party went. And then your little buddy over there in China and North Korea, they're going to end up in the same place. So that, John, you want to say anything to this individual before I block him, because I'm ready to just get him off it.
Steve, let me make a recommendation. This is an opportunity for us to show the difference. See, in our country, he can be there and saying this stuff. If we said this stuff in China or in Cuba, we'd be thrown in jail and shut down. So what he's saying is nonsense. He's a typical communist. He's hiding his real name. He's hiding. He can't. He's afraid to show who he is. He can obviously write in English because he's writing in English, and what he's saying is just propaganda. And it's great for our people to see this nonsense. Why hide it?
Here it is, folks. Here it is. I just put it up there, okay? The CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, has eradicated poverty and have uplifted billions. John, where's this guy living, in a jar? I don't normally do this, folks, but this is becoming so comical. Just to give you an idea who's watching us and who's tuning in, what has the U.S. done? Attack innocent people in other countries. John, attack innocent people in other countries. The U.S. government is an imperialist aggressor. China will be number one very soon. Well, normally I don't respond to this, folks, but I want to share with you what we receive. And this individual, he decided to tune in tonight to let us know how wonderful China is. So isn't that the country that spread the virus, John? Isn't that the country that is responsible for millions of people who are dying as a result of the virus?
Well, they certainly let the people of Wuhan travel throughout the world while they locked them out of their other provinces within China. So, and again, the point is he could say whatever he's saying. You notice what he's saying is all declaratory statements, this, that. And he's banging the table loudly. Remember Khrushchev banging his shoe at the United Nations. You know, this is just nonsense. I
just sent him to the ash heap of history. Okay, gone. But folks, but you see, folks, this is what we are challenged with. Don't let that deter you. If this does anything, it emboldens us. But as John said, getting back to what he said about the Department of Education, everything, including General Mark Milley, and I mentioned this in the petition. And like I said, please get to our website or go on the Facebook page, our social media platforms. You'll see where we have the change.org petition asking you to vote to show a vote of no confidence for General Mark Milley. Folks, the fact of the matter is that got to get involved, got to stand up, got to speak out. And unless we do that, we're in trouble. Now, to the church pastors, a lot of pastors, rabbis, ministers, they get in touch with Campaign for America. And we're going to be going to many of their churches to speak to their congregations, not about politics, but about getting involved in protecting religious freedom and the Constitution. Here's what we need you to do. And I know many of you are watching because you've told me. We need you to speak to your congregants, speak to them about America and about what they need to share with their children. And that is the principles of God and country. You've got the documents right there. You got the Bibles. You've got the Constitution. Bring people in that'll share the story of America with them, because your children, folks, are watching TV. They're on the internet. They're being sucked into this ideology in college, in high school, and now it looks like elementary school. So that's what you can do, what pastors can do to help protect communities. And perhaps maybe, folks, you can invite people that don't belong to your particular congregation, open it up to the community and have them join you. That's number one. Actually, I should have said number one is prayer. I believe in the power of prayer, and I'll always say that. We pray for wisdom and guidance and for God to give us the strength to fight this fight. But John, equally as important, and I'll toss it to you on this because you're a guy that gets involved, and I know you motivate people to get involved. So let's talk about that and really emphasize this idea of people getting involved. I hear it time and time again. Lieutenant, I don't have the skills. Lieutenant, I don't have the talents. Lieutenant, I don't have the money. I don't have this, I don't have that. How can a person like me, John, get involved?
Well, Steve, I say it this way. If I can do it, anyone can. I come from an immigrant family, an Irish name in the north end of Boston. My mother was one of 10 children. I didn't start off where I am. I started off on the other side of the railroad track, so to speak. Anyone can get involved. You got to show up. The first thing you got to do is show up. But the bigger issue is you have to decide whether it's worth fighting for your children. So you got to care, and you can start off simply by going on. You can go on to these Facebook groups, social network groups. They're springing up all over our state. They're springing up Fairfax County in Virginia, one of the most wealthiest counties in the country. They're engaging now in a recall of school board people. And so you got to run for office. You don't need to be trained to be a trained politician to volunteer for your school board. Your school board needs people who care about the kids, not people who care about getting the best recommendation from the teachers so they can give them a pay raise, to the union so they get a good letter of recommendation for their colleges. I equate that to the parent who coaches the Little League team because he wants his son or daughter to be the starting shortstop. Yeah, that's what we have a lot of on our school boards. We have a lot of people there that got elected with no opposition. They recruited by other members of the school board. They recruit like-minded people, and most of them just go along to get along. Now, there's an organization in New Jersey called New Jersey Family First, and I mentioned them to you while you were away, and they're actively getting involved with. They've got packets of information, a toolkit on how to run for office, how to organize, and I think we should probably have them on as soon as we can to bring that resource to the people. Now, I've been working with people. I've been encouraging people to run for school board. I'd rather not say where and when, but they're going to, and it's happening now. And that's the great thing about America. We can participate. And if we don't participate, as Lincoln said, we get the government we deserve if we don't.
Well, John, let's have, I think it's Len Dio, right? Let's have him on next week. Can you arrange that?
I'll reach out to Len. Absolutely.
All right, and folks, we're going to talk about at length how you can get involved from the local school board level up to national government next week. All right, folks, so here's what I'd like to do. If you would share this video far and wide, people need to hear what's going on. Our intelligence report will be published in the next 2 weeks. What we spoke about tonight and some real critical information you need to know about with regard to the General Mark Milley of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and where he's taken our military. And I will be in Staten Island. We're back from Florida at the moment. I'm going to be in Staten Island on July 29th, and we're going to be giving a pretty good announcement for the next mayor of New York City, Bill Pepitone. That's on July 29th, and we'll get that information out to you if you feel free to email us. Now, if you'd like to know more about Campaign for America, our website is campaignforamerica.com. Here we go, campaignforamerica.com. We'll put you on our email list, and you'll get our newsletters and other information important to you. Now, John, I'd like to close out quickly with this. It's called, I wrote about this in my book, Governing the Affairs of the People. And I've talked at length about this. All that we've talked about tonight. Unfortunately, we have politicians in this country, in every state, that are too busy calling each other names, that are too busy degrading their families, that are too busy fighting with each other, yelling at each other, not only within the same party, but party to party. I can tell you a little story, folks. I've never said this. Well, I think I actually told it to a reporter a long time ago. When I ran for office a couple of years ago, not a local office, but another office, all right, I was given information on the individual I was running against that would have been very, very damaging to him and his family. So I decided not to use that information. I decided not to publicly go after this person. Now, the person wasn't a Republican, folks, it was a Democrat. And that information would have probably been the end of this person's political career. But I remember a long time ago when I read about the ethics of Ronald Reagan and George Bush, the father. And they ran into a situation where, again, running for public office, they were given information about their opposition. And so, like them, I thought about it. And I said, you know what? Elections come and go, but my character has to stand with me forever. Now, I'm not perfect, and there are mistakes I make, but the one thing I chose not to do was to attack with true information, false information, but to attack my opponent with information that would damage him or his family. I decided not to do that. Well, the election came and went, and well, that was one election I didn't do very well in, but I've got to tell you, during the course of that entire campaign, we did not go negative. We stood above the fray. We fought the good fight of faith and did it the way it should be done, addressing policy, no name calling, no downgrading, but addressing policy. And I know, John, I know you a long time, and in your run for Congress, you too stood away from that type of politics. You stood above the fray, and you did what was right, what was for the common good of the people, for the party, for the country. So when I speak of the politics of personal destruction, John, I can only suggest to anybody listening, especially within the Republican Party that's in deep, serious trouble, look at what we just articulated tonight. That should be enough for us to be concerned about. I would just suggest, when it comes to personal attacks, stay away. It serves no purpose but to destroy the democracy, the Constitution, the country that we love. John?
Yeah, Steve, we all our stories when we run for office. I actually ran for office in '95. I was a very young man, and I ran a negative campaign. And it was running for the assembly seat in New Jersey District 37 against two other Democrats, and it was a gerrymandered district. The Republican couldn't win. We had some polling data. I was brand new to politics. We had some polling data that said, one of us can win. And I listened to the consultants at the time, and they went pretty hard at this guy. And what happened was, I still lost. We didn't lose by as many votes as the gerrymandered district represented, but I regretted what I did. And in fact, I called the gentleman up and apologized a couple of days later. And he made an interesting comment to me. He said, John, he said, my dad taught me, don't insult me in public and apologize in the men's room. So, a personal story, I wrote a letter of apology and denouncing my own campaign tactics to the Bergen Record. And I gave it to him to review. And I said to him, you can submit this letter. And, he never did, Steve. And he was a Democrat. He never submitted it. And he went on to have other issues and problems himself, but a pretty good guy overall. And I'm glad I did that. In 2018, I had a heated primary. I kept it on issues on point. Who was a Trump supporter? Who wasn't? My opponent put out a mail piece with me in a Bigfoot suit. Okay. We won that primary. We lost the general. And last year, my story, Steve, we were running a primary, but then COVID overcame, our COVID obligations overcame our family. And I had to basically pull back from the campaign. We did lose the primary, but not because we were engaged in that. But that opponent, Republican opponent, put me in an alligator suit, saying that I was the swamp. So, and interestingly enough, he's running again, he hasn't asked me for endorsement or support. We know he's anti-Trump, but he tries to play himself to be Trump, pro-Trump. And, there's no need to destroy people's lives. We're all Americans. Now, there are Americans who hate our country, unfortunately. We saw this gentleman here a little while ago, the revolution, you can't stop the revolution. And well, at least he's admitting that there's a group of people that hate our country. And I think when you talk about, even when you're talking about the general tonight or the people like Bettina Love, I've got no personal animus against them. It's what they stand for. It's what they're doing that I'm opposed. I don't know these people personally. And Steve, you should be commended, because sometimes you win when you lose, because you wouldn't be on this program right now fighting the good fight for freedom and democracy. And your voice needs to be heard across the country, across the world. And you're an important voice that needs to be heard. And if you did what you didn't want to do, because I did it, and I regretted it. To this day, I regret it. But I did apologize.
Well, John, and look where you are today. You see, your character lives with you, and that's a good thing. You're good to apologize. And just wrapping things up, folks. John talked about consultants. Well, for any political office holder watching and candidates watching, I'm going to show you the manual of my political consultant, right there. My political consultant. It doesn't mean I ask people for advice. I ask John for a lot of advice, and we talk a lot, and I read a lot. But at the end of the day, John, you know what? The good Lord saw you and your actions of apologizing and making what was wrong right, and he's blessed you for it. I'll always stand by his word. And my advice to all of you who are listening, when you're down in the dumps, when you're going through that valley, remember there's a God above who said that he will not only walk with you through the valley, but he's going to carry you right out of the valley onto the other side of the river. Oh, John, what do you think? Next week we'll have Landillo on, and I appreciate you, John, and your candidness, and that's quite a story. I tell you, you're on the air talking to a lot of people, telling us a pretty good story. God bless you for that.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, folks, that's it. Campaign for America. So campaignforamerica.com is our website. Just fill out the contact information. We're going to put you in our email list. You'll be getting our intelligence report. I think there's a little thing you could write a narrative down if you want. Maybe if there's something you want. And then let me just put this up real quick. Well, John, I'm becoming one of those tech gurus. I'm learning how to work all this. That's our email, folks. It's mail@c4ausa.us. Mail@c4ausa.us. Email us if you have a question. If you need something, we're here for you. All right, until next Wednesday night, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time here on the East Coast of the United States of America. I'm asking you to share this information far and wide. Please sign the online petition. You'll find it on our social media platforms if you scroll down a little. And like I always say, folks, pray, pray, pray. There's much power in prayer. And remember, at the end of the day, at the end of our lives, what is the chief end of man? To love and to glorify God forever. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you, John. God bless America.